Hello, welcome to Friday I'm in Bed.
Podcast for midlife women living their best life, but in bed by 10.
Okay, so we're going to start a little bit differently this week. We're just going to do a quick fire Moan-In. We're going to tell each other some things that are annoying us this week, and then we will decide whether it's allowed or not. And if there's any things that are annoying anyone who's listening, feel free to put them in the comments, send us a message, and maybe we will decide whether yours are allowed or cancelled next week. So I'm going to start. I'm going to start with mine. I'm going to say the thing that's annoying me, a little bit about why, and then Kate's going to either cancel me or allow it. So my first one that I picked this week was subscription. Yeah, so I'm really fed up having to subscribe to everything. I've got subscription to Adobe, Windows, toilet paper, razors, like the works. Some of them I want to have the subscriptions, but things that particularly annoy me are like Windows. So it used to be, you would buy like the Windows software and then you could use the out-of-date Windows software for as long as you like. But now it costs me like £10 a month just to use Word, and I have to have whatever the latest version is. I can't just go, no, I don't want to pay for that anymore without just losing it, despite the fact that it's cost me hundreds over the last few years. So allowed or cancelled?
Allowed. I tried to buy some drinks the other day and I had to subscribe. I don't want to subscribe to drinks. I just want to buy some drinks. Like, I hate it.
Okay, awesome. What's your first one?
Bikini bottoms.
Bikini? Okay.
I'm bikini shopping at the moment and you can only buy the tiniest little bikini bottom that's ever existed or full knickers, which is fine if you want either of those. But like, what happens if you just want normal pants, normal bikini bottoms? And when did they start making bikini bottoms so small they don't actually cover your bottom? And I haven't even got a big bottom. I just want to wear something that fits my bum. And it's not about,
do you know what?
It's not about my body. It's about the things.
Do you know what? I was quite split on that, but I am going to allow it on the basis that I was bikini shopping last year and I did have a very similar issue. Some places had ones that covered your bottom, but they were like so low that I was like, okay, I just want, a little bit, like, this much at the side is fine.
Yeah.
That's fine. Yeah, okay, I'm allowing that. I mean, this would be terrible if we just agree every week, but
I feel like we're so aligned that we are going to agree. But anyway.
Okay, you might disagree with me on this one because I know you're this person. So my second one this week is loud music in pubs, because drives me insane, because I'm not in a nightclub, I'm in a pub, and this is a place where we might go, oh, let's meet up and have a chat with some friends, and the music is so loud that everybody around you is shouting to chat with their friends, which means you then have to get louder and louder and louder and louder, and no one can hear each other on the other side of the table, and I think it's really annoying. So loud music in pubs, stop it.
I think you sound quite old. Like, I get it, and I can't hear in my right ear anyways because of all the loud music I have listened to. Oh, I'm not sure if I'm allowing this. What kind of pub were you in? Was it a young
All
pub?
of them.
Pardon?
Probably. Okay, am I cancelled?
I think you're cancelled, or be brave enough and ask them to just turn it down a bit because it's a bit too loud.
Oh no, but then you really sound old.
Okay, so my last one are those new hand dryer, washing and soap dispenser things in public toilets where you put your hand in and the water comes out, and then you put your hand in and the soap comes out, and you put your hand in and it dries, but it never dries, like it never works. So you have to just keep walking around. Basically, we never had a problem with a soap dispenser and a tap and a hand dryer. They've now modernized it, and you have to just keep putting your hands in, hoping that soap might come out or it might dry. And it doesn't work.
I really want to cancel you in retaliation for you cancelling my last one. But the problem is that I was literally in like a motorway service station the other day having a conversation with another woman in there where we were going, these are just ridiculous. What was the wrong? Well, we both just walked around and stuffed our hands under things like this, like trying to find one that worked. And then it would be like, oh no, I got some water but no soap, and you'd move over to the dryer and it'd spit soap on your hands, and then it would be, dry them. And I'm like, well, now I've just got soap on my hands.
And you're just going, oh, forget it, and wiping your hands on your dress and walking out because you can't dry them.
There we go. Okay, so I'll let you have both of yours, but you cancel me on one. If anyone else is annoyed by anything, let us know.
This week on Friday I'm in Bed, we're starting with reality TV dating shows like Married at First Sight and asking how far producers should go for the sake of good television. We're talking contestant welfare, how people are chosen, and whether the push for drama and viral moments is starting to go too far.
Then we're chatting about the rise of the adult gap year after reports Tess Daly wanted to take time out to travel now that she's left Strictly after 20 years. More people in midlife seem to be stepping back, changing direction, or taking a breather. So we're asking, is your 50s the perfect time to reinvent yourself? So grab a cuppa and let's get into it. Kate, how are you doing this week?
I am much better than I have been of late. How are you?
I've been exhausted recently, and to be honest, I'm having kind of the day from hell that was supposed to be a lovely, relaxed day where I did the podcast, and then we're going off to the beach for a couple of days with the dogs. Except that one of our dogs has decided to have bladder stones. So instead, I spent all morning running backwards and forwards from the vets, getting him an ultrasound and having him prescribed random muscle relaxant drugs. So I'm a bit flustered, but it's okay. I've got like an hour to chat with Kate, and it's going to be lovely.
We've got the sick dog club, haven't we? My Dolly had, she was spayed yesterday and she's refusing to move. Well, that sounds like she's refusing, like she's a bad girl. She's not, but she doesn't want to move or eat or do anything. So yeah, it's that kind of like mummy of dog moment, isn't it? Going, I don't know what to do.
I know, and it's horrible when they're poorly because they can't tell you either. They're my babies. You've got real babies. These are my babies.
Yeah, and my real babies are getting into the swing of exams and everything now. I feel like we're a week and a half in. There's half a week, a couple of days, and then it's half term, and then we've got a week and a half. Like we're not even halfway through, but it feels like we've got a little routine going on. My daughter is living on Starbucks.
Amazing.
And the promise of rewards at the end of it.
Yeah, haven't you? Yeah. Haven't you promised her like holidays and stuff?
She's got a Hayley Williams gig at the end, and I did buy a handbag that said if she kept going, she'd have this bag, and she's had the bag because she's doing well. So
okay,
bribery is the way forward.
I'm sure something else happened this week, but like today is just the only day now. This is like I can't think about anything else.
I had a modelling job on Monday at the Tate Britain.
Ooh.
Which sort of combined work with like one of my favourite things in the world, which is art. So that was really cool. So the promo for their new exhibition is going to be me and others kind of looking at pictures going, ooh, I'm doing obviously great for a podcast. I'm now doing actions, but like me going, oh, look at that. Oh, take a picture. Yeah.
Oh, I'm at an art gallery.
Oh, yes. Well, I do go to art galleries, so at least, it wasn't weird. But yeah, so that was fun.
Yeah. Don't think I did anything else at all, to be honest. Slept because I'm so tired for some reason. But there we go.
Anyway, we'll get into it then.
Anyway, let's get into it. Okay, so I'm going to start this one with a trigger warning because we will be dealing with topics of sexual assault and inappropriate behaviour. So if that's going to bother you, skip ahead to the next chapter or topic, okay? Should be the option to do that down below. But we've talked about Married at First Sight before on the show. So Kate's a big fan. But over the last week, the show has been pulled from streaming services while some very serious allegations have been made by 3 of the UK brides against their on-screen husbands, and they are being investigated. It's worth noting that there is no criminal investigation going on at the moment, but it started with the BBC Panorama documentary that aired on Monday night, where they reported that 2 women who have remained anonymous alleged they were raped by their on-screen husbands during filming, and a third, Shona Manderson, who has come out publicly to allege a non-consensual sexual act by her on-screen husband, Bradley Skelly, who he categorically denies the allegations. And like I said before, there is no criminal investigation presently. So we are not going to focus on the individual stories in detail as they are still under investigation, but I'm sure we will put a link in the zine if you are subscribed, and maybe in the show notes as well if you have not heard the story, though it's kind of been big. The most important thing the women involved obviously deserve is to have those allegations taken seriously rather than picked over as entertainment. But we felt it raised much bigger questions about reality TV as a whole. So there is form here. The Jeremy Kyle show was pulled by ITV in 2019 after the death of one of their guests, Steve Diamond, I believe you pronounce it. And Love Island has obviously been hit by the deaths of quite a few contestants, Sophie Graydon, Mike Thalasitis, we'll leave that there, and former host Caroline Flack. And bullying complaints to Ofcom have hit record numbers this year, with over 11,000 logged about Love Island particularly. Do you watch Love Island?
Yes, I have. Oh, I haven't watched that series, but But yes.
Okay. Yeah, it was Love Island All Stars, I think.
Yeah.
And there's also the much older issue of producers deliberately manufacturing conflict. I mean, I was a massive Big Brother fan back in the day, and they did a lot of plying contestants with alcohol and then editing for drama. There was the Jade Goody and Shilpa Shetty bullying and racism incident on Celebrity Big Brother that's like 2007. So we're like, how many years ago is
20
that?
years. 19 years. Yeah, 19
What
years
year
ago.
is it? So obviously there's a few threads to unpack in this. There's a question about misogyny and consent in the public arena of a show that's essentially built around like forced intimacy. There's the bigger question of like reality TV itself. It's a format that is literally built on putting people into high stress situations to provoke a reaction out of them, and then claiming that they consented to whatever happens next, essentially, when they don't know how they're going to react. So I'll start with Married at First Sight, particularly because I know that you do watch it. So you can maybe tell me, because I don't. So are issues around consent something that's been featured on the show before?
I think it's worth saying, and this will come up if we talk about Big Brother, that Married at First Sight started off being very much focused on couples hopefully getting together, not necessarily getting to, falling in love. And there was very little drama, a bit like when Big Brother started. And then drama started to happen, particularly in the Australian version, and it did very well because the audience loved the drama. And the drama was things like sneaking around and snogging another husband kind of drama, or somebody falling out, and there was lots of alcohol as well. So the more drama that happened, the more people watched, the more people it was talked about, and then that fuels more drama, I think, being instigated, let's just say, by the production team. And you can see it if you start at like series 1 and all the way through. And then somewhere along the line, the British version got a bit more like that, I think, because the Australian version was so successful. Yeah. So obviously the whole point is you are meeting a stranger and falling in love, a bit like Love Island, a bit like all these dating shows. And part of that is you live together. However, I don't think in my memory, I think I've seen them all, correct me if I'm wrong, there has been anything discussed around consent, not as in somebody not consenting. Mm-hmm. However, there is, when you watch it unfolding, there is so much problematic behaviour, not just by the men. I really need to caveat that. There are women, so for example, the Married at First Sight series that's just finished, the Australian version, the women were particularly toxic. And I think there's kind of a couple of issues here. One is the viewers love it. So, that cycle of, so therefore the producers are going to push it. There's all that, and it's sort of lost its way in that way. But also you watch it, and as a viewer, it can be quite uncomfortable because you're like, I can see he or she is behaving in a coercive way, or there's something just like love bombing is quite rife on it. There's controlling behaviors, and I think sometimes they don't get picked up by the experts.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask. How do they handle it?
Well, they do. The problem is when they are picked up on things, or they have a chat about their relationships. Apparently it's like a 2-hour chat and we see 5 minutes. So it's really hard to know because there's editors that are editing it so that we see the drama. So it's kind of, and it's the same. I don't want to ever look like I'm defending Married at First Sight, but it's the same on all of these shows. It's the same pattern. And us as the viewer, I think we fall into two camps. We either look at it and we think it's hilarious and funny and, oh my God, did you see that person? And or you watch it and go, that person's behaviour is a little bit concerning. Yeah. And what you don't always know is if they're pulled up on it, but also you don't know if it ever happened at all or whether it's been manipulated, because there are people that have been in it that have spoken that, that clip of me looking angry was actually from 5 hours earlier. Do you know what I mean? Or they repeat the angry face. So you see it so much that you think they're angry, and then they go, I wasn't even angry at that moment. So it's so difficult.
In a funny place. Yeah.
It's really difficult.
So this is one of the things that I thought about as well, is like, not just around consent in the relationships in reality TV, but consent in reality TV in general, and what
Yeah.
contestants are actually consenting to when they go on is, are they consenting to being turned into a caricature of themselves, however the producers decide that they want to present them? Can you consent to that when you don't know what that's going to be? Can you consent to somebody presenting you as a version of yourself that you don't recognize, and you're kind of losing that control over your image, especially when alcohol is concerned? Because we all know that in relationships, excessive alcohol consumption is a red flag for not able to consent, not in control. So when you are then giving people excessive amounts of alcohol, filming them, if someone was doing this on social media to a complete stranger in the street, giving them loads of alcohol, filming them, and then putting it up without their permission, edited to make them look a certain way, you'd be furious. But because they signed a piece of paper before it happened, apparently it's okay. So,
and when you listen to the contestants, they do talk about this. And there's Katie, who was a contestant on the Australian one, because obviously what's happening this week is that past contestants are coming out and giving their view, not in a whether I think it's true or not, but just how I felt, and I need, and how it was for me. And I need to say that what's come out is not acceptable and it does need to be addressed. So, but they're all coming out and speaking. And I saw something earlier from, I think she was called Katie, in Australia, and she was saying about how her story was created by the production, not by her. So she shared all her vulnerabilities in the vetting process, and she was teamed up with somebody that would be the worst person for her, because obviously in her opinion it created great drama. And it was almost like there's always one or two that are definitely put together, you feel, because they're not compatible, which obviously is against the show. And so it all unfolds, and you don't have control over how you're shown. You finish filming and then it's obviously edited and it comes out, and you don't even know how you're going to be perceived. And there was quite a lot of people, as you know, I always love a comment. So I read the comments to gauge what people are thinking. The amount of people that were saying, you chose to go on it, you knew, you weren't on an early series, you're on a late, you knew. And she was like, yeah, I knew I might not like my partner. I knew it might not work for me. I knew that I didn't have control over the edit, but I didn't consent to being made, to be almost being used for my vulnerabilities and put together with somebody that was never going to, I didn't consent to that. I consented to go on a show to try and find love. And I recognize that whatever I say could be misconstrued. But once you're in there, this pressurized environment that becomes your
you don't know how
entire
you're
life.
going to react. Yeah. And informed consent is always that's a thing in medicine. Obviously, people need to understand the risks, and I don't know whether they are being told when they go on that, obviously they've seen it happen to other people, but who thinks, oh, I'm an awful person, everyone's going to hate me?
And I don't think, because one of the things you always hear people say is, well, you said it. You can't show something you didn't say. No, but you can show it out of sequence, which happens and has been, and you can cut bits out of what I said. And actually, you can cut my entire personality. Everything. It's not just what you say, it's what they cut out that you say, so it's manipulated. And that's not just Married at First Sight. I'm sure that's all, because there's obviously less popular reality TV, whether it's celebrity dating, celebrity dating, or the normal first dates, or Love is Blind and The Bachelorette, and there's Below the Deck, and there's so many of them, but you don't know what's true, and that's really hard. And I saw a video actually from a UK contestant today, and she did say she actually, and I must say this, had said the welfare were great with her. Obviously, we can't talk about the people because obviously everybody's experiences are different. But she did say what I really struggled with psychologically was the abuse I got from you, i.e. the audience. So it's so the whole thing is a bit of a beast, isn't it? It's a bit of a tricky melting pot of...
I think Channel 4 had already commissioned a review of it anyway after they'd had the allegations before the Panorama documentary aired. And they say that their welfare is gold standard. I know that I think it was Shona Manderson said that she said that some of them were great. Some of the welfare team were great. I mean, you do get that anywhere. However, she also said that she asked for a follow-up meeting with the production team a year on. I was told it would be honoured, and then it never happened. So and that's why she says she then did that with the BBC instead. So is it as gold standard?
Yeah. And although
They say they are.
I would say, obviously, we don't know what happened, but that couple left. They were asked to leave. It was really toxic. But again, as a viewer, obviously I don't know what happened between them, but as a viewer, it was a love bombing situation, and then he withdrew. So he was, I love you, and she was like, oh, and then he withdrew, and then she got really in her head and was like, what have I done wrong? And was desperate for love from him, but it was classic. And then they were asked to leave because it was not good. And so I don't think any fans of the show were surprised. But then that leads me on to, I think, the biggest issue with all reality TV is the vetting. Because there are people that I watch on these programs and you think, how, this person, how are they on this show?
Walking red flag.
Walking red flags. But then I also know, I mean, it's like if you're recruiting someone from a job, you only can go on what you can go on. Not often, although it has happened, is the show goes out and then exes of that person ring up going, oh my God, I went out with him or her and they abused me, or this happened, or it was violent, or whatever. And you think, oh my goodness, but obviously you think, oh my goodness, you're horrified. But if someone hasn't been charged, how can they? It's the vetting. It's so different. How do you vet for a program to know that they can cope with it psychologically, but also they haven't got any disturbing characteristic, red flags?
But then, of course, if some of the contestants, if they're being chosen by producers, what we don't know is if they did spot those massive red flags and thought it would make good entertainment to
exactly
stick a massive misogynist and a feminist in the bed together within hours of meeting each other. And that's when you then have to ask, is that, you might say your welfare team is top, but you're already putting people in essentially dangerous and volatile situations just to see what happens for entertainment, which
isn't entertaining.
And they generally sign away their rights in perpetuity. And that's the thing as well, is people go on these shows and still 20 years later they are going to be the person, and you can still use those clips. You have no right to have that taken down. That's sometimes I feel like, well, you agreed to go on it is a little bit like, wow, she was wearing a short skirt, or
exactly.
But for anyone involved,
duty of care.
It's is the duty of care from the producers, does it extend to making sure, it might extend to making sure they're safe while they're on the show, but does it also extend to making sure they don't suffer massive backlash and helps them deal with the after effects of being on the show?
That's a really good point, again, for all reality TV shows, because apparently there is support afterwards. I mean, I know there is on Love Island. I don't know about all of, particularly in light of what's happened. But it's a bit like, if they're the people that have caused the pain and the trauma or whatever, they're not the people you want to then fix it for you.
To then talk to and fix it, yeah.
Yeah, and so that's a bit of a tricky one. But also, are they helping with we made you out to be a massive villain?
Yeah.
But
here we go.
Yeah, so it's a bit like, are they helping with that? The public perception of you afterwards. Are they helping with that?
I think there are so there were Ofcom rules that came in 2020, probably just flew in while the rest of us were trying not to catch
after
COVID.
Jeremy Kyle, probably.
Yes, it was after Jeremy Kyle. The story of that one was Steve Diamond, spelt with a Y, so I'm not entirely sure whether it's Diamond or Diamond, because I have never heard it said out loud. He took a lie detector test on the show. To prove he wasn't cheating on his wife, but he failed the lie detector test, and therefore she thought he was cheating on her. He couldn't convince her otherwise, and then he committed suicide. Lie detector tests are not considered, they're basically nonsense. And I imagine it was fairly stressful being on the show in the first place. So it wasn't really. So yeah, the argument was that this was that this was not a realistic situation. And I know that Love Island did a lie detector thing, which they then stopped doing after that incident. And then obviously there's been a lot of other manipulative incidents. I mean, Jeremy Kyle was a terrible one for people saying that, you know, he'd be nice to you, nice to you, nice to you, and then you'd be on air and he would just like lay into you, like you calling names and awfulness. But Big Brother, while stepping back and claiming that they weren't influencing things at all, would withhold alcohol from a load of bored people in a house and then flood them with as much alcohol as they needed on an evening, and then claim that they had nothing to do with the things that happened afterwards, which have included there was the massive fight night one where they had to take the live streaming off air for a while because they all started fighting. And Big Brother was one that I did used to watch originally. I haven't watched the last few series because they started doing this more and more and more as their viewership started to drop. There was an incident with Jade Goody and Shilpa Shetty. I was getting there with arguing and racism on Celebrity Big Brother in the garden with a bottle. I believe that there was a hot tub incident at one point.
And there was a hot tub incident
with a couple of them, but they give them alcohol essentially and then claim that none of this is, you know, it's not their responsibility. Whereas, you know, even if you're serving alcohol in a bar, you're supposed to go, you've had too much, it's time to stop.
But I think on Love Island, they've stopped giving them as much alcohol for those kind of reasons and because of some of the stuff that happened. What I find interesting and some of the comments I've been seeing around Big Brother is, well, two things. One is they were filmed 24/7. So you actually, one would like to say whether it's manipulated or not, saw the reality. It wasn't chopped up and switched around and things missing. So current reality TV.
We watched the live stream.
Yeah. But also, to begin with, in contrast to today's reality TV, it's probably quite boring, but we all watched it. We watched people sleeping.
Oh, yeah.
Nothing happening, but we still watched them. And what we enjoyed was relationships forming and just the nuance in people. And I think that's what today's reality TV has forgotten. Actually, we're all just a bunch of voyeurs and we quite like just watching things happening naturally. We don't need Married at First Sight Australia that's just finished last week was one argument after another. The whole thing was everybody arguing. And the first week or two, it was quite interesting and fun to watch. But then it was like, gosh, A, this is really toxic. And B, I'm actually quite bored of watching people arguing.
It's exhausting as well, isn't it?
It was really exhausting.
Oh, God, do I need this?
And one couple fell in love and are now engaged. And it was beautiful. And it was like, I wish they realised that we really like watching them falling in love and talking and the conversations and the growth, and like we don't need all the drama. Okay, probably a little bit of drama is quite interesting, but like if it just becomes total drama, it's like car crash television, which I suppose Jeremy Kyle became, didn't it? And whilst it can be fun at first, I think it becomes less fun.
Yeah. I do think it becomes less fun when it's manufactured as well. When you realise that they're being kind of drip-fed alcohol, deliberately having people put together who will not get on and are going to absolutely hate each other. I mean, you know, the things I remember for Big Brother are quite often the stupid things like, God, what was his name? I've forgotten, falling over the coffee table or stupid stuff.
George Galloway getting on his knees and pretending to be a
cat. Would you like me to be the cat?
We're still talking about that, you know, those sort of weird and wonderful moments. No, I don't know, wonderful, but you know. But I think that it's, because even with that, if you brought back Big Brother in that format exactly as it was originally, there's still, you know, I need to come back to the vetting. You know, how do we put people together? Even as I said, like first dates, they do spend the evening together and then go out quite often, the two of them afterwards, off camera. So you need to make sure, you need to know that the person you're meeting isn't dangerous, but then if you go
you're putting trust in the producers not to choose someone who's been murdering women on dating sites and not been caught yet. Like
exactly, but is it any different from going on a date anyway? So it's kind of like you put 20 men or 20 women in a room, there's going to be someone in there that's got some questionable behavior. I'm not saying worst case scenario behavior, but so how do they do that? And is this the end of, I don't know about Married at First Sight, but just reality TV? Things probably have to change as a whole. And I hope in the reviewing that they don't solely focus on Channel 4 and Married at First Sight, because these things happen or have happened or, in other shows on other channels as well. So like Love is Blind is Netflix, I think. Love Island is ITV. There's even been, bullying rows on Strictly. And I know that has affected viewership and trust in Strictly. And they're celebrities, they're not strangers. So there's, how do we navigate, or how do they navigate this to make sure the
The kind of bullying thing is the flip side of this. So David Hay was the one on I'm a Celebrity recently, and he's apparently suing ITV for making him look misogynistic, aggressive, and a bully, and causing irreparable damage to his brand. So he is now suing I'm a Celebrity because he's saying that the way that he was presented on that is not him.
But then I, as a viewer, are like, but you literally said that, and then you went on This Morning afterwards and doubled down. So again, but then I know this is happening in Australia. It's like, you've ruined, I lost my job, I lost my, my friends, I've lost everything. But then she did behave like she did. But then how much was edited and how much was pressure cooker situation? And it's a tricky one.
I mean, and we've all had bad days, right? Said things we regret when we're having an argument, or, and are you then expected to carry the weight of that being broadcast on television for the rest of your life just because you consented to be on a reality TV show?
I think obviously it's going to be a lot. There's obviously going to be a review. The next series that was due to air in September has been dropped. I don't know whether it'll be dropped forever. Fans of the show are really upset about that, because Mel, who was one of the experts in Australia and in the UK, passed away not long ago, halfway during us watching the Australian one, and her last shows and appearances are going to be on the new series. A 3 episodes she did just before she passed, and we sort of want to see her as well, but then they need to review it and find some kind of solution. But as I said, I hope as a whole, not because it's all of them, to be fair.
Yeah. And it's a lot of these shows, the kind of format was pre-social media as well. So, the Big Brother contestants could be whisked off to a place in the countryside afterwards, and then they wouldn't necessarily see all of this pile on when something like that happened, if we're talking about bullying and the demonization and the way they're presented. But now it's completely inescapable, which I think we talked about before when we were talking about the Beckhams. So, how do you get away from it when it's social media and people can find you anywhere if you've got your phone with you? I
know, but I suppose ultimately they are paid to go on. They do get a small salary, or I think they get their salary in Australia anyway. It's bigger there. And people deserve to be safe at work, but also people deserve to be safe all the time. Whilst, say, with Married at First Sight, you are allowed to request a separate room, there are extra rooms, you don't have to sleep in the same bed. Obviously, the expectation is you do. And Love Island, again, if you don't want to sleep in the same bed, you have to sleep outside and get eaten by mosquitoes. So it's exactly the same, as in.
Okay, so again, that brings us back to the issues of consent, doesn't it? So obviously the consent conversation in everyday life in ours, has moved on a lot in the last decade, in the last 20 years. So we talk about enthusiastic consent, we talk about coercion and power dynamics and things like that. But then on television, in front of millions of viewers, we're still running a format from 2003 where, with an allegedly gold standard welfare, where people are essentially forced to sleep in the same bed with someone, even if they might not want to. So it's not that it, is necessarily bad telly, it's that these are people's lives that we are increasingly manipulating for entertainment and claiming that they consented to it. And it does make me, like I say, I was a fan originally of Celebrity Big Brother and stuff, but I haven't watched any of these shows for years, and it does I hadn't really given it a lot of thought as to why, but some of this it does make me feel uncomfortable.
Agree. And hopefully things will change now, and they need to.
Okay. And we will be putting some resources in the show notes as well. There's Samaritans, and I've got some rape crisis numbers under there as well for people.
change the mood a little bit and talk about adult gap years. So this has come from obviously it was in the press. It's probably not even true. Who knows? But Tess Daly, it was reported she's left Strictly. And in the last few weeks, her and her long-term husband, Vernon Kay, have announced they're splitting up. They're in their 50s. And one of the things that has been said, as I said, I don't know if this is true, but it's a trigger for things to talk about today, was that she really wanted a gap year. She wanted, now she'd left Strictly, she wanted to go traveling and have fun, I think, have a year off before she made a decision of what to do next. And apparently he couldn't because he's got the morning show on Radio 2, which is obviously really, really high profile. So it was kind of, I'm not saying this is why they split up, but that's one of the things that's come out, that she really wanted to do this. And I thought to myself, adult gap year, that sounds fun. When we think of gap years, obviously a gap year is generally between school and university, and it's time to just chill and reflect and have fun after being in education since you were 5 and before you go off to uni. So it's like just taking stock, stopping, having some fun, and a chance to really think about what it is you really want to do with your life, which of course you don't make any decisions like that when you're actually at school. And then of course you can do that at 18, and then most of us don't do anything similar until we possibly retire, if we ever do retire, and if we've got any money when we retire, and whether we're physically able to do it when we retire. So it's kind of like this, you leave school, work, retire concept. And actually the thought of being in your 50s, and I'm saying 50s because I'm 53, but also Tess, I think, she's older than me, slightly, I think. It seems really desirable. So before we get into gap years, I thought I'd share some stats, because I did do some research on taking sabbaticals and taking extended career breaks. So in other words, taking a gap year wouldn't be called that, but But some stats on sabbatical. So a sabbatical is just an extended break. Research shows that 80% of workers feel more committed, creative and engaged after, when they return back to their job. In the UK, 53% of companies offer unpaid sabbaticals or extended career breaks, and only 18% offer paid. But to be fair, I don't personally expect to be paid to have a year.
Just go, I'm just going away for a year. Keep paying me.
Yeah. 33% are planning a longer career break in the UK, particularly in their 50s. Although a lot of those are planning to have it for surgery, it's worth saying. So nothing as exciting as
It's the holidays. Yeah.
Not
Does
the
that
holiday.
count? No. I had to have an extended career break after my stem cell transplant. I don't think that counts. That does not count.
No. And I wanted to say that one because I think there's probably stats that saying people are taking it, but actually they're finally getting surgery done.
That they've been needing for years.
Isn't an adult gap year. 13% of 45 to 54-year-olds say they plan to take a sabbatical, and 9% are saying they're planning to take an extended career break. But that does drop to over 55s to only 6% want to take a sabbatical and 5% an extended career break. I'm presuming because retirement feels just a little bit nearer. It's also worth saying that we do know that there are fewer 50 to 60-year-olds that decade working in employment after COVID. Many didn't go back. We do know lots of women
took early retirement. Yeah,
they took early retirement, and we do know that women in their 50s are choosing to set up their own business. So there are more. It's really difficult to get the stats. I've looked forever and a day for stats around self-employed women. We do know more and more women are choosing to be self-employed and are definitely leaving the workplace, but we don't really know ages as such. But I know from all the people I talk to. So adult gap year. So first of all, actually, let's start. Did you take a gap year after you left school?
No. So I went into nursing. So I immediately started a nursing diploma. I did a year of that, and I was sick a few times over it, and they were going to have to put me back a year, and so I dropped out after a year because you're only allowed a certain number of sick days after the Beverly Alec case. So I dropped out. I went back to school. I went back to college to do my A levels then, and then I went to
Oh,
university after that. So I kind of had two. I had 2 years out, but in those 2 years, I was doing A levels and part of a nursing diploma before I then went and did a degree. So although I like finished late, they weren't holiday years. Did you take a gap year?
I did take a gap year.
Oh, where did you go?
Well, I think first of all, it was was it forced? It kind of was. So I was going to go to drama school. I got into drama school. I can't even remember where. I think it was Leeds. My mum seems to think it was in Leeds, but I have no idea. I thought it was in Manchester. But anyway, I didn't get the results I needed.
Uh huh.
And I don't know if clearing was such a thing in 1990. I mean, it probably existed, but I think I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do. And I just had enough of education. So I spent most of the year, I took a year off, but I kind of had nowhere to go anyway. And I worked to fund, I then went traveling around the west coast of America. I've got
Oh.
family and friends in San Francisco, LA, and the person I traveled with who listens to the podcast. So hello, Lulu, if you're listening. She had family in Vegas. So we went and then I went to Greece for a while as well with a boyfriend. So not like I didn't spend the whole year traveling, but I just spent the year having fun. I mean, let's face it, can I just say shout out for the fact that 1990 and 1991 are probably the best 2 years ever to be literally just partying. Because it's probably not so good now, I have to say, having a gap year now compared to 1990 and 1991. But I think I took time to work out what I wanted to do. And I realized I didn't want to go to drama school. And I decided to go to university to do drama and English literature. And I went off to London to do something different. So I suppose it gave me time, a breathing space, if you like, to think, what do I want to do? And of course, I worked. I didn't literally just party because I had
Mm,
to pay for the partying and pay for the traveling. But yeah, just that kind of time out thing. And I think it's something that I'd love my son to do, but he doesn't seem to want to do it because he can't afford to.
mm,
Although he can't afford to go to university either, but that's a whole other conversation. And I think that's the thing with a gap year is the idea of taking time out to think. Do you know what I mean? Would you
yeah.
like, yeah, time to
So
think?
I've always found it odd that somehow at 18 you're supposed to be like making decisions about what you're going to do for the rest of your life. Like go to university and like specialize. We're constantly like pushing you down into like narrower and narrower and narrower things. And I'm like, I turned 47 last week and I still don't know what I want to do with my life. Like, do you know what I mean?
Really?
How on earth was I supposed to make that decision at 18 years old? That's ridiculous. So,
I know.
yeah, I saw, we were talking about kind of, adult gap years and going, is that
Mm.
yesterday, while I was, let's not call it doom scrolling, just random scrolling, a reel popped up from someone talking about what she was calling a hot divorcee summer. And she was going, hey, you don't have to be divorced to have a hot divorcee summer. But she was essentially
Oh.
talking about like a very similar thing. Like, you don't have to be divorced. You can just like choose to have that, to go traveling, do your own thing this summer. So I feel like that's maybe a bit of a similar
How old was
idea.
she? How old was she, would you say?
Probably in her early 50s. Yeah. She was
Oh, so the sort of age we're talking about. I mean,
yeah,
she
she was
wasn't
she was
divorcing.
she was a grown up.
You know,
She was
but
a
it's
grown up
so
with
hard.
compare, so she should probably come and listen to the show. So
Yeah. But it's so hard, isn't it? Because, and well, if what I've read in The Sun or wherever it was true, she couldn't. So, talk back to Tess Daly, she
mm,
couldn't because even though her children are now at uni or whatever, they're older, her
yeah.
partner has had things he had to do. And obviously she could do it on her own. I get that.
Yeah.
You don't have to do everything with your partner, but it is even now I'm sometimes like I could go away because I could work anywhere. So I could go away for 6 weeks in the summer with the kids or not with the kids. But then I do have that, but I'm married and what's he gonna say? Because that sounds like literally I don't do
Yeah.
anything unless but it's a bit like, but he can't come, so I'll be doing it on my own, and there's nothing wrong with doing it on your own, except I would like him to be there, and he doesn't have a job where he could, and it's that, like, digital nomad thing, but does that only work if you
You're
both
doing it on your own.
or you do it
Yeah.
on your own?
See, this is I never got the opportunity to do much traveling when I was younger
Mm.
because I didn't have any money. Like, I was gonna, like, come up with a better reason than that, but just didn't have any money. Went on a couple of holidays. I've been on a few, like, press trips and stuff that have taken me to some exciting places. But generally, I didn't do an awful lot of traveling. And so in the last couple of years, I have started trying to take some holidays and some breaks. And my husband has done some traveling in the past and isn't really that keen on the idea of doing an awful lot now. Plus, we have 2 elderly pugs that need looking after. So I have been kind of splitting about doing some things with him and some with other people. And I have
Mm.
some girlfriends that I travel with. So it's like last year I went to Croatia, but then last year we also took the van and we took a month off and we traveled around the UK. So we did all the UK and we're planning to do the similar thing later this year. So we're kind of splitting it. So I do some of the things with him because he is self-employed
Mm.
and he does have a bit of flexibility, though he's more tied to space because he actually makes physical products. So he needs, so he can't take like a whole summer off to go, but he could take like a month and just go, well, you can't have the things you've ordered until I come home. That kind of
Yeah.
thing. So yeah, and I went to Morocco earlier this year. I'm going back to Morocco again. I'm planning a long weekend in the Netherlands with another one of my friends. So, so I'm not taking a gap year. I'm still working. I'm taking mini gap years or holidays, as normal people call them.
I
But
know,
in
but
a way that I didn't when I was younger, and I
yeah.
didn't have to be a hot divorcee to have.
But then you're both self-employed, aren't you? Or you're
Exactly,
self-employed,
yeah.
I'm self-employed. I think what's tricky is when you are employed to be able to do it, hence then needing an extended career break. We have I say my vision is to do more traveling, and in retirement travel, but then my other half Adam says, but we might not be up for it then. You don't know how you're going to be. You don't know how able-bodied you're going to be. You don't know when you're going to retire. So it's kind of like, it feels like now is a good time. And I do know my daughter's got 2 more years at school. So it's like, oh, I wonder if I can start broaching the subject of an adult gap year in 2 years' time. And we could rent this house out, although to be fair, children don't leave home anymore, do they? She'll still be here. And she can't afford the rent.
So
So
this
that's
is
what
what I was going to say. Is this do we do adult gap years now because that's when we can afford to do this stuff? Because I mean, I still don't understand now how anyone managed to afford to take a gap year. And I know you said you worked your way around it, but it's expensive to do this stuff. But now it's even more expensive. It's crazy.
Oh, yeah, and we could only afford to do it in 1991 because it was 1991 for a start, and also we had friends and family, so everywhere we stayed, the accommodation and therefore the food was free. We just had to pay to get from A to B to C.
Mm.
And obviously to get to America and then spends and stuff. But again, we were under 21, so we couldn't drink. So that meant it was cheaper because we didn't go out as such. We'd spent quite a lot of money on clothes and vintage shopping. I do remember. Had to buy a suitcase to bring it all home. I remember that. And this is funny. Random story. For some reason, I couldn't go traveling without Marmite, which is just so weird. Like, what is that all about? So I took a jar of Marmite to America traveling.
Right.
Not even that obsessed with Marmite. I don't know why I couldn't live without it. And it was only a glass jar back then, wasn't it? I think you might get it in plastic now. I don't know. Anyway, I bought the most, and I remember it so well, the most stunning vintage leopard coat that was beautiful. And the jar smashed on the way home and it ruined the
Marmite
coat.
leopard coats.
I still remember that coat
Oh.
from 1991.
Oh no.
I had to have a gap year with Marmite, for goodness sake. But then even, this isn't a gap year, but in 1993, I worked a season in Greece. So I got on a plane with my friend and we didn't know where we were going. We knew we were going to Athens. We didn't know where we were going to end up. We got a ferry. We ended up on the beautiful island of Paros because it was the first ferry leaving. And we worked for 3 months, worked a whole season, and it was literally possibly one of the best summers of my entire life. And I think nowadays, I'd love my son to be able to do that, but do people do that anymore? And is it affordable? Or and again in 93, early 90s, it was also hippified. We just played backgammon on the beach and in all day
Was
and
it
then worked
backgammon
all
or was it
evening.
badminton?
I know it was backgammon. I actually mentally realised it wasn't badminton having. That's a joke from last week's podcast where I got a little confused. So yeah, but can people afford to do that now? And is that another reason why people are now having gap years? Well, I don't think they are, but people are taking time off or having
Yeah.
extended holidays, extended breaks in their 50s when they've got a bit more money. But then how do you even do that if, what did I say? Looking down at my paper, only 18% of companies offer paid sabbatical, and I'm sure they only offer it if you're at a certain level as well.
Yeah, I was going
I
to say
can
they're not
imagine.
offering it if you're on the phone selling car insurance, are they? This is senior management, I suspect.
I think so. But then so I think, well, I could potentially do that because I can work from anywhere in the world as long as I have Wi-Fi and my laptop. I could work from anywhere.
But would this be, do you think you would do this differently in your 50s than you would in your 20s? So, like, if you were going out in your late teens, early 20s, if you were going to go off and do a gap year, this is when people start talking about hostels. And I mean, even when I went to Croatia, we booked a pre-night before, so we could get in late and then spend the day in Split. And a lot of people were going, "Oh, I'm just going to stay in a hostel. It's just somewhere to sleep, isn't it?" And I was like, "No. I'm having this air-conditioned room with a balcony and room service, and I'm going to get them to bring me a cocktail and some dinner before I go to sleep all on my own in my massive bed."
You're so bougie.
Yes, I need bougie. So, if you're taking these gap years in your 50s, or your 40s, me,
Oh, 40s, yeah.
I'm taking my mini gap years, aka holidays. Are you doing it differently? Is this a slightly more luxurious experience than a teenager backpacking around Europe?
I think
Are we booking ourselves nice hotels?
I don't hotels. I don't know about luxury, but I think we're more safety aware. I was watching Race Across the World. I don't know if you watched that. Love it. And last week's episode, they were in a hostel with like these little little not bunk beds, like little capsules that they all
Like
slept
pod
in. And there was a girl's room and a boy's room, a woman's room and a man's room. And I was watching it, and all I could think of was safety. All I was thinking of is the girl is now separated from the boy, so they're brother and sister. He's over there in that room, and she's over there, and is she going to be safe? And I think when I was that age, I probably wouldn't have worried about. Maybe I would worry now, but I didn't in 1990, definitely. Whereas
Yeah.
now I'm like, I think, oh, when you said hostel, I think safety. I'm sure they are safe, but I start worrying about sharing rooms with strangers,
Yeah.
and my safety, and also my things.
Yes,
Do I have to
I like
sleep
my
with my
thing.
money attached to me?
Yes, we've got more expensive things now.
So yeah, I think I'd love to like rent. Like Airbnb, maybe not Airbnb as such, but like rent. I'd like to do Central America, but then South America and have like a week in Peru, but just rent an apartment in the city and then go off. Or, I suppose that is definitely bougier than a hostel, but not maybe
Yeah.
a luxury hotel. But then can you, like, who's going to pay the mortgage? I've got to then still pay the mortgage at home, haven't I? I mean, obviously Tess Daly has, I'm
I imagine
presuming, a
she's
little
all
bit more
right.
money than me.
Yeah, I imagine she's all right.
I think he's all right. But there is that, though. There's all that to think about. It's not just if you're being paid if you are in a PAYE job.
Mm.
It's like, what about all the stuff at home? If you rent a house, are you going to give up your flat or your apartment or whatever for a year? Or
I
6
think
months? No, probably
when
not.
we talk about any of these things, there's always a massive amount of privilege behind any of them, isn't there? I mean,
Of course.
the ability to take a gap year at 18 is a massive amount of privilege. The ability to
Yeah.
go to university is a massive amount of privilege. The ability to go on holiday at any point is a massive
Anyway,
amount of privilege at any age. And the ability to take a gap year in your 50s and just take that time off work is a massive privilege. So I guess it's sometimes you have those different amounts of privilege in that way at different times in your life. So
yeah.
maybe it's just about making sure that you kind of grab opportunities that come your way to get to have those experiences, because I do think that they're what's the word I'm looking for, Kate? Useful? That
Just
doesn't feel like the right
useful.
word. Valuable? It's valuable
Valuable.
to have these
Yeah.
experiences, to experience kind of even a slightly different culture, and even just to go and have fun, like, is a valuable thing to have.
Yeah, absolutely. But then you don't have to go away. One of the things I do with the women I work with and talk to is, work out what you want to do that you're not currently doing, and work out, can you start to do those things? And yes, that could be traveling, because obviously an adult gap year is traveling. But what about, going on a life drawing course, 6-week course at the local college, or learning to horse ride? Now that costs loads of money. Maybe it's just, I wanted to sew. I learned to sew a year and a half ago, and I'm now making my own dresses from vintage fabric. I've always wanted to do that. I kind of played around with that at uni. I used to
Yeah.
customize stuff, but now I'm actually making things, so it's kind of, it doesn't have to be going away. I mean, my gap year, I still work. I only went away for a short part of that entire year, but I took time for me. And I think maybe that's, as you said, grab those experiences, but realize that life is for living, and get a piece of paper and write down. I always say to people, two things. Obviously, what's
I've
that?
literally, the bracelet, I have a bracelet on, everybody, that says "Life is for living" from the Georgie Swallow trip to Morocco that we took.
I
We all
didn't
got
know
one.
that, but
There we go.
I'm there. So I always say, get a piece of paper and write down all the things you wanted to do. Do any of those still resonate? So, I wanted to be a florist always as a child, for example. Do I want to do floristry now, or do I want to go on do something with it? And actually the answer is no. But I also wanted to do art, and I did a lot of art. And now I don't, yes, I go to art exhibitions, but I don't do any art. So like, write all that down, the things you wanted to do, and also the things, you kind of would, you've always wanted to do. So the things you
Yeah.
wanted to do, as in it was the dream now, because there's community led stuff that doesn't cost, well, it's free, in fact, or doesn't cost a lot.
Just time. Just time.
It's time, absolutely, and that is a privilege. But what tends to happen quite often in your 50s, children leave home or go to college if you have children. There is like this window of opportunity where it's
Yeah.
like, now it's time for me. But rather than spending all that time doing the cleaning, um, and all the life admin, actually, how about learning to reupholster or something, which is
Or
something I
something.
fancy doing.
Yeah. Well, I was taking a little smaller than that. I bought a load of art markers and I've been doing some colouring in, but
Exactly. And I suppose there's things that bring you joy, or like that are hobbies, but I urge everyone to think deeper than that. So a hobby, so for example, my husband plays golf. He enjoys it. Great. Has he always wanted to play golf? No. But what he's always wanted to do is potentially go somewhere. I don't know to speak to him. But so it's kind of like, there's a hobby that I really like, going to the pub quiz and writing the pub quizzes and hosting the pub quizzes, and it brings me joy. But actually, was that bit on my bucket list when
I know that we laugh about when I was saying, it's a mini gap year or holiday, as other people call it. But actually, sometimes I think that little bit of a reframe in your head with the time that you have can be really useful. It's not a weekend, it's a mini holiday. It's not a holiday, it's a mini gap year.
And actually,
just that tiny little reframe puts a different perspective on it, that this is time for me, not just a thing that I do.
exactly.
Or that
And
happens.
don't use the word just, because I think I was saying to you in the break, which nobody else heard, I'm going away. I'm just going away for a night next week. Oh, it's only a night, like it's just work, because it is work. But there's an opportunity there, and it's interesting and exciting, and it's going somewhere I haven't been before. And actually, it's that reframing it, but not just like, oh, it's just a weekend, or I'm just going to, just.
Yeah. Well, I've told you I do this. Me and my husband both do it, where we take nights away. He tends to go off like camping and walking and stuff, and whereas I tend to be more on the booking myself a night in the hotel side. But I mean, I did it last year for my rebirthday from my stem cell transplant. I booked myself in a night in a hotel. I took my tarot cards. I sat in the bath for ages, read my book, did some journaling. And just like one night, I mean, it was, I took myself down there, had dinner and room service. I literally stayed in the room pretty much all evening, and just, took that time for myself to think. I sat and wistfully looked out of the window, It was lovely, and it is really useful just to do that sometimes if you have the capability. So yeah,
That's
how
right.
small can you make a gap year?
Or have a gap decade, or have a gap the rest of your life where you try and do things, learn things, new experiences, whatever it is that floats your boat. And remember, you can learn to do things by watching YouTube, and you don't have to subscribe. Going right back full circle to your first Moan-In to make it sound like I'm really planned this, but full circle, back to the beginning, you don't have to subscribe to YouTube. So you can learn things for free. You just need to write a list, I think, and
Write a list. My next task, write a list.
yes, and then report back to me. Thank you for joining us for another roundup of midlife chat, hot takes, and occasional moaning. Well, quite a bit of moaning.
Make sure you hit subscribe so your podcast app gently nudges you every Friday, because honestly, who remembers anything without a reminder these days? And also, we like people liking us because we're very needy.
And if you fancy being extra lovely, leave us a rating or a review. It helps more brilliant women like you find us. Have a great weekend, everyone, and make sure you find time for yourself. You deserve it.